The Colorado Buffaloes are taking the field against Georgia Tech in a couple of weeks, but they've already been bit with the injury bug. Let's talk about how serious this is.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. And thank you for making me your first listen of the day. Let's dive right into it. Colorado has some injury problems already. Now, there's about 12-ish, or I think 11 days until Georgia Tech makes the trip to Boulder, and they battle it out in week one. And the Buffs have been injury riddled or stricken already. By the way, this is the new Locked On Buffs studio. I've made a big boy purchase. Me and my fiance bought a house, and this is how things will look from now on, pending some better lighting as we install some lights. But appreciate you guys for supporting the journey along the way. You guys help make this possible. Now let's talk injury problems. So the offensive line, and I'll talk to you guys about the scrimmage starting lineup the other day. I thought it looked really good. I noticed quite a few things, but there was two people who I noticed were absent, noticeably absent. Right guard, Zy Chrysler, and then also running back Dallan Hayden. Now, Dallan Hayden is a guy who I called it earlier this season or earlier this offseason. I was like, blue chip recruit, Ohio State guy, put up some big splashy numbers in Big Ten play a couple of years ago. But when he got to Boulder, did a whole lot of nothing, right? And I mean, he got banged up last year, and injuries have sort of plagued him in his time in Boulder. This was the year that things were supposed to work out for him. And I mean, there's still a lot of football left to be played. We haven't even played any football. So there's still a lot of football left to be played. But Dallan Hayden has a hand injury. He's not expected to play against Georgia Tech, and he possibly could be out for multiple weeks. So what does this do to the running back room? Well, for starters, you have a guy like Micah Welch, who got some valuable starting experience as a true freshman last year, put up some pretty decent numbers. Outside of Isaiah Gustave, I would say he was the most productive back. And at times I thought he was better than Isaiah Gustave. So when they lost Isaiah Gustave, and this isn't like a take a you-know-what on the Isaiah Gustave move, but I mean, it's like Colorado was fine with him leaving for a reason, right? I mean, at the end of the day, most of these programs in college football, if they want to keep a guy, they'll pay him. That's what it comes down to. Right, I talked about this with Jaheim Otis the other day. Alabama was because I have concerns over Jaheim Otis now. Alabama was willing to let him leave. There's a reason. If Alabama wanted Jaheim Otis to stay, they would have paid him. Now, I do think Colorado could get the most out of him if he's willing to commit. But again, that's sort of how it goes down. In terms of Isaiah Gustave, I think Colorado was just like, hey, we didn't get much out of any of these running backs, but we do have some promise. And Micah Welch this past year, 43 carries, 186 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's a little bowling ball, 4.3 yards per carry, 5'9", 215 is what he's listed as. I think he's a guy that he can carry the load. I think they also – I didn't necessarily – I don't know. I wasn't wowed by the addition, but they brought in Simeon Price from Mississippi State and Coastal Carolina, 44 carries for 136 yards last season, 3.1 yards per carry. He's primarily been – a backup, short yardage guy, not really doing much. And then they have DeKalon Taylor. And I'm going to go on a little DeKalon Taylor rant next segment. But you have 3 guys there. You have Cam McCall, which I don't know how they plan to use him, but I would love to see Cam at running back. I really would. Isaiah Harge is also a versatile Swiss Army knife that can, I guess, you could plug and play him anywhere, right? When he played running back in the spring game last season, I personally thought he was the best running back on the team, and I thought they should have at least figured out a way to get him carries on the year. But they decided to go in a different direction. In terms of Chrysler, I want to say Chrysler. I think it's Chrysler. I just like saying Chrysler because of the car, I apologize to him. Banged up. He's expected to be okay. He was at the luncheon the other day. So it's one of those things where it's like, you wish he was playing the scrimmage. You wish he was okay. But on the bright side, offensive line coach Gunnar White today. I think he said that they have a lot of guys that they trust, a lot of guys that they think can play. So when you think of the Colorado offensive lines of old under Deion Sanders, where it was like one injury blows up what was already a terrible offensive line, I think they're playing it safe right now, which I think is fine, right? He'll have another week or so to really ramp things up, but they aren't naming a starting offensive line group because they have so many guys that they're willing or able to play. So I think that's positive. I think that's a good position to be in, especially when you've had zero. Oh, I didn't say it's zero, but last year Jordan Seaton was the best offensive lineman. He was a true freshman. We'll just put it that way, right? When Jordan Seaton is your best offensive lineman as a true freshman, there's some problems. And I think they're setting themselves up now to have depth, to be able to run the ball, which has been something that they haven't been able to do. And they're also setting themselves up to not really fall apart after one incident. And so Xylon, I think he'll be back, right? I think it's one of those things where Colorado is probably going to surprise some people with how good they can be, just because it's one of those things where they were bad last year on the offensive line. And I think Colorado's offensive line is going to be one, it's going to be bigger. You have Xavier Hill, who's Xylan Chrysler, 6'7", 340. Larry over there at right tackle, he's 6'7", 6'8", big dude. Xavier Hill, big guy, right? He may be the biggest on the team. He is listed as, let's see what they updated him to, 6'4", 320, right? So he's not as big, but he's still big. Jordan Seaton, he gained some good weight. Jordan Seaton he experienced that typical freshman, like, hey, we got to figure things out sort of stuff, 6'5", 330, right? Colorado's big. They're strong. They're experienced. And although they're banged up a little bit, I think that I think the offensive line is in better shape than the running back room. Let me tell you, the running back room worries me already when it's fully healthy. So the fact that they lose Dallan Hayden for, we'll call it at least 1 to 2 weeks, I don't love that, right? Colorado needs everybody, all hands on deck, and I wouldn't be surprised if they start moving people around like a Kamikawa or like an Isaiah Harge, just to sort of figure out how they can maximize that room. When we come back, we're going to be talking about why I think Colorado has a secret weapon that they should be getting the ball at least 12 times a game. But first, a quick break. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Drip Drop. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused throughout back-to-back classes, hydration is where it all starts, and that's where Drip Drop comes in. When I'm hopping on top of my hydration, I notice everything works better, my energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin. But getting enough fluids every day isn't always easy, and that's why I've been loving Drip Drop. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. So right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on any of the coverage. Let's talk Track Hawk. Track space Hawk. That is DeKalon Taylor. If you're not familiar with him, you will be. Because one, I'm about to go off on why I think he should get the ball 12 times a game. But you also may not be familiar with him because he was at Incarnate Word last season, former receiver, little tiny guy, 5'9", but he's as fast as they come. Probably the fastest guy on the team, or at least one of the fastest guys. And I'm gonna show you guys. We're gonna do a little film study right now. Our Locked On Buffs, the very first film room. I'm just gonna show you guys how good, how quick, and why this guy needs the football, because I think it'll become very obvious after you watch this video. So here we go. So yeah, that's DeKalon Taylor. Absolute menace, extremely fast at Incarnate Word this past season, and he does it all. And I think this is why Colorado really, I don't say lucked out in getting him, but probably one of the more underrated transfer portal additions that they made. 152 carries, 909 yards last season, 9 touchdowns, 6 yards per carry. Again, he's tiny, 5'9", 165. And he looks every bit of 165, right? I don't think he's any bigger. I think he's the type of guy that could probably go eat 2 whole pizzas by himself and probably lose a pound, right? He's just that's just how he's built. But 22 catches for 163 yards. He also returned 18 punts for 286 yards and a touchdown. The year before, he had 375 yards in kickoff returns. Absolute menace. And I've been saying this a lot. And I think a lot of people, if you've tuned in, you're probably like, okay, here we go again. But DeKalon Taylor, to me, is Colorado's Kevontae Turpin. And let me explain. Back when TCU had Kevontae Turpin, who's now with the Cowboys, they had what were called Terp touches. So it was like, this guy needs to touch the ball X amount of times per game, right? When we get him the ball, big things happen. And I think that's what Colorado needs to do with DeKalon Taylor. He's fast, he's elusive, and he's a big play waiting to happen. And I think with losing Travis Hunter, LeJounte Wester, Jimmy Horn, Will Shepard, Shedeur Sanders for that matter, you're losing 4 or 5 guys who are one play away from making big plays. You need someone who could be a spark plug, a big play generator, and I think that's DeKalon Taylor. He's one of those guys where defenses are going to have to scheme him, or they're going to have to scheme for him, excuse me. They're going to have to figure out, like, hey, where's that little sucker at, right? Because he's tiny. Where's number 20 for Colorado? Where is that guy? Because if you don't keep track of him, he's going to be in open space, and he's going to be running past your entire secondary. And that's something no defensive coordinator wants. And I think this is a role that you can really have fun with, right? Because he's so versatile as an athlete, you could put him in the slot. You could maybe put him out wide and have him run a crossing route over the middle, because it's like Xavier Worthy with the Chiefs. There's certain guys, it doesn't matter how big they are. Like DeKalon Taylor's probably not going to win you any jump balls, which, I mean, I'm sure he could. If he put his mind to it, I'm sure he could. But in reality, you just want him in open space, right? You let him pick up a head of steam and no one's going to catch him, right? Colorado has some fast dudes. He's probably the fastest. And I think having guys with speed who are undersized has sort of been – Coach Prime has used those guys perfectly. I mean, LeJounte Wester was tiny. LeJounte Wester was probably around the same size as him. When I interviewed LeJounte Wester at the East-West Shrine Bowl, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, I guess disappointed in myself, if you will, because he's listed at 5'9", 170. I tell people I'm 5'8", 5'7", which means I'm like 5'6.5", really. But LeJounte was not that much taller than me, I don't think. So one, I was like, dang, I'm just not that guy, you know. I'm just not that guy athletically. But it shows that Colorado has a blueprint for undersized guys, right? A lot of teams will see, oh, he's 5'9", 5'10". We don't have room for them. Coach Prime sees that, and he's like, you know what? We're going to figure out a way to get him the ball. We're going to figure out a way to make life living hell on the defense. And I think DeKalon Taylor, track hawk, I think we need track hawk touches. And I'm going to be measuring them starting this week against Georgia Tech. I'm going to start measuring the track hawk touches, right? I think he needs about 12 per game. That could look like 8 carries and 4 catches. That could look like 9 carries and 3 catches, 3 design, whether it's a screen, little bubble, whatever. I don't care. I don't care how you get in the ball. I want the ball in his hands. Let him make something happen. And I think really, and I'm saying track hawk now, I think Quentin Gibson could be in a role like that as well. He's a true freshman, speedster, tiny guy as well. I think Gibson will get there, but I think DeKalon Taylor is there right now. And Colorado needs to figure out how they can elevate this offense without taking a step back, or I guess elevate this offense and sort of form a new identity because they're going to look brand new. This isn't going to be the air raid offense that we saw last year. And people would be like, oh, they ran blah, blah, blah. It was an air raid offense, right? They ran the ball like historically bad. They were the worst team in college football in terms of rushing offense. They also didn't try to run the ball. So, and like there was teams who literally run in the air raid offense like Hawaii or I forget who else. I looked at it the other day and then we talked about it on the show. But there was air raid offenses with more rushing attempts than Colorado. And so they need to figure out a way to form their new identity. And I think finding a way to get DeKalon Taylor is one of the best ways to form that new identity. When we come back, we're going to be talking about who's going to likely start for the Buffs. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day, and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you could splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and continue to follow along the journey because we have some really cool changes coming out. Not just this great background, which my fiance, she put together for me. So shout out to Kristen. But we have some really fun ideas coming up, and you guys won't want to miss it. So let's talk about the starting lineup. Georgia Tech comes to town in 11 days. And Colorado's yet to name a starting quarterback. They've yet to name a starting offensive line. They've yet to name a starting running back, and they've yet to name their starting receiving trio. That being said, I think I know who it is. So this is the lineup combination that I noticed in the recent Well-Off Media video. And here's how I base things off. We know Jordan Seaton's going to be the starting left tackle. We know Xavier Hill's going to be the starting left guard. So who's around them the most? That's just sort of the logic I'm rocking with. So this is who I think will be the starters on the offense line. Jordan Seaton, Xavier Hill. Xavier Hill is the Memphis transfer. Then they have Zarian McGill at center. He was in a battle with, I almost said a kid's name that I went to high school with, Cooper Lovelace, Northwestern transfer. Offense line coach today said it's really, or I think it was Neely that said this. You could plug and play either one of them. It's pretty even. So it's just going to come down to how they mesh with the quarterback. Preferably whoever it is, I don't care. Just don't snap the ball off of the quarterback's chest when they're not looking. That does cause problems. Look at the Texas Tech game. Right guard, Kareem Harden was starting he was with this unit in the scrimmage this past weekend. That being said, I think that's where Zy Chrysler is going to go, Chrysler. I think Kareem Harden is going to be that swing guy where he kind of just rotates in and out when they need him. But I think you got to go with the size. You go with the experience of Big Ten experience. And I think I've said this last year after the season, probably during the season. Nobody from that offense line last year outside of Jordan Seaton should start again for Colorado. I wasn't loving what I saw from the group. They tried hard. They did their best. That being said, it wasn't working out, right? Colorado was one of the worst offense lines in the country. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't protect the quarterback. And that's when things get difficult. Right tackle, Larry Johnson III. Now, Larry Johnson III probably would have started at Tennessee this year, except Tennessee spent, I forgot the number. I think it was, we'll say millions of dollars because I know that to be true. They spent millions of dollars on David Sanders, who is one of the best recruits in the country. Offensive lineman, 5-star. They really wanted him. So Larry Johnson was sort of going to be that swing guy, odd man out. Well, guess what? Now Colorado has a 6'7", 350-pound behemoth ready to protect the quarterback. And I think he's going to be just fine. Tight end, Now, I know when they called up the guys, so the main guys, they went with Savell Smalls. I was seeing a lot of Zach Atkins during the scrimmage, and it wouldn't shock me if we see Savell come in as a blocking tight end and Zach is more of the offensive minded weapon there, because that's just how things go, right? That's just the reality of it. In a way, you sort of have to understand, like, dude, we are trying to make plays after the catch. And I don't know if Savell Smalls has that in his bag. And I don't know if Zach Atkins is as good as blocker as Savell Smalls. But when you have both, who cares, right? Zach Atkins is a big yards after contact, yards after the catch type of guy. And I expect Colorado to lean on him. Now, these are the wide receivers I saw. It was Omarion Miller, Isaiah Harge, Sincere Brown. Realistically, I think it'll be Omarion Miller, Draylon Miller, and you can insert a third receiver. I think they go Sincere or Joseph Williams. I think it's a good problem to have when you have a lot of receivers that can play. That being said, I think Colorado does this to themselves every year where they're like, we have so many receivers. We're so deep. We're going to play all of them. And it's like, we're not, right? Last year, Colorado had Travis Hunter, LeJontay Wester, Will Shepard, Jimmy Horn, 35-plus catches. Then it was Draylon Miller, which Jimmy Horn was injured for a lot of the time, and I think that probably played a factor in Draylon Miller seeing more snaps. But you had Draylon Miller, Omarion Miller, Dallan Hayden, right? Dallan Hayden's obviously a running back. So you're not going to really get 6 or 7 guys rotating in there throughout the year. You may see more guys get an opportunity, but most likely not going to happen. Running back was Michael Welch, which I talked about earlier. Bowling ball, little muscle hamster is what I'm going to start calling him. Shout out Doug Martin. And then quarterback, they had Caden Salter. I've been confident throughout the offseason that Caden Salter is going to win the job. Neely said it the other day that it looks like he's sort of got the advantage. He's a dual threat guy, brings a lot to the table, brings a lot of experience, and I think Colorado has a really solid offense. So appreciate you guys for tuning in, making Locked On Buffs your first listen of the day. We are free and available every each podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow, and I will see y'all tomorrow.